thank God we can meet again as a family. We love, respect, and appreciate you. Enjoy the blessings and the favor of God. We continue to massage the topic of gambling. This habit can lead to serious harm to health. These include financial stress, relationship breakdown, family violence, crime, mental illness, suicide. It promotes greed, covetousness, a lack of trust in God. It fosters an attitude of idolatry and love for money. No, you need to nip it in the bud, as we would say, before it gets out of hand. There is hope in the Lord Jesus Christ. Psalm chapter 50, verse 15, powerful words of Jesus. He said, call upon me in the day of trouble, and I will deliver you, and you shall glorify me. The answer is right at your door. To you viewers, blessings, 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 and thanks for staying tuned with us. God bless you.
Call upon me in the day of trouble, Reverend Sin, and I will deliver you. Powerful. Today we want to continue to examine the whole notion of gambling, and we want to look at it from a sociological perspective as well as the psychological perspective. And these perspectives would have chosen because we want people to know that we're not just mouthing words, but we are standing upon some of the great critical thinkers who would have written extensively, and we come across them in universities and colleges and so on. So don't say we have a set of men sit down there and talking about this thing and they don't know what they're talking about. It will be remiss of you to think like that concerning what we're doing. And so, when we speak about sociology, we're speaking about society, people, groups, communities, and the kind of impact, whatever is happening in that environment, the impact that it may have on people. And psychology specifically speaks to the individual, the mind, the behavior of an individual. So one is more socially integrated, while one is from an individualistic perspective. And so as we look at this issue of gambling, a famous sociologist, and I'm sure some of you may know him, a gentleman by the name of Emile Durkheim, he talks about one of the impact of gambling is the issue of social, as he describes it, he says social disintegration. And he says it weakens the family. Reverend Singh spoke about the family. It weakens the family and community cohesion, contributing to moral deregulation. These are the words of Durkheim. And so we're saying again here that this thing is so dangerous that we have to keep away from it. Can you imagine a family being weakened? The society, instead of gelling together, there is no contradictions, because for somebody to win, somebody got to lose. And so, while some might win, others lose it. So the issue of inequity prevails. And then we have the issue of crime and deviance. Here it is another champion sociologist by the name of Robert Morton. He says it produces a deviant response. He talks about illegal gambling, theft, and fraud, because to maintain a habit, all of these things have to happen. Now, if you were to jump into the psychological aspect, we'll just cite two situations here. Some of us who would train Reverend Sanders as a teacher, you might come across, Kabiheskin is one of the names that we use that in social psychology, in the education system. And he talks about addiction. So when we talk about addiction, it's not something we coming up with. And this man mentioned this thing since 1953. Addiction and compulsion. You hear people say, man, I want to stop gambling, but I got to gamble because it's compulsive. So this man went in, he says what? Gambling activates what he called dopamine. A dopamine, this is an enzyme, a dopamine reward system through variable reimbursement schedule. So you think that you're going to be reimbursed someday, you're going to make it, it's going to come right. And then there's a man named Tversky. He talks about cognitive distortions. Gamblers hold, listen to this now, they hold irrational beliefs such as the illusion of control and the near miss effect, and nearly make it, but the next time you're going to make it until you keep losing and you have nothing. So this is not a gaffe. So this thing is something for us to stay away from, lest these evils come upon us. Gentlemen.
Well said, Dr. Hudson. But I want to bring it home to the man in the street, because the man in the street might not have an understanding of some of the terminologies and also the references you made. And so for the man in the street, you will have that urge, that desire to want to use the little that you have, to see it increase, not by way of investing, but by way of gambling, okay? And there's no positive outcome to gambling. And so from an individual standpoint, the urge, the addiction to always be involved in this devious act that is misleading, believing in yourself that if I don't do it today, tomorrow I will be able to accomplish what I set out to accomplish, will lead you down the wrong path. And the hurtful part of this is that the family is the first unit to suffer from such behavior, because there's the resources that should be used in the family is now used to deal with a habit that can be taken care of if we submit ourselves and if we listen to those who would have been there or those who would have had the understanding. And that's why I'm happy that you use the research that is there for us to understand that this is not a talk shop. There's evidence to prove that time and time again, persons who have been involved in this kind of practice have suffered and suffered immensely, not just from an individual standpoint, but even the family has suffered and the wider society. And so we have to be very mindful of what we are involved in as we get involved in this practice. As I look around, and I see the advertisement, they are so catchy, and it's pulling the pull effect. And you believe in yourself, what these people are saying is possible. It is not possible. It is not possible. For you to win, several persons got to lose. And we don't know how long it will take for you to become eligible to be a winner. A man called me the other day. He said, I got good news for you. Your number came up among the 20 lucky persons. And I stopped him in his tracks. I said, you take that for yourself. Take it and use it for yourself. I have no need for that. And so we have to be very mindful. I'm cautioning the young people out there, the man in the street who believe that this thing can work for me. It will never work, my friend. Never work.
Dr. Hudson, I am so happy that you have brought to this platform your academic training and experience. Mine in the field of psychology is limited. Child and adolescent psychology is what I dealt with. And though I love it and did extensive readings, I can concur with many of the things that you have said, though my study area was not smaller than yours. I love Skinner. Hear what Skinner said. I want to add to some of the things you said about Skinner. Skinner said that gambling, it affects the individual mental and physical health by hijacking the brain, rewarding systems, and leading it to believe that there is a benefit which eventually leads to emotional distress. He goes on to say that gambling, like substance abuse, stimulates the brain. And you spoke about dopamine, all right? And so it creates that, and which leads to this compulsive need that seeks a higher level of gambling. So each level tries to push you higher, giving you this illusion that you will win. It actively releases a stimulant in the brain. Therefore, gambling and the experience of gambling becomes a cognitive delusion, believing that you are due to win after making so many investments, which becomes addictive, which is just an illusion, and eventually causes you to go into a losing cycle. So I concur with the academic, and I wanted to just add that portion of Skinner's work to the table.
So, gentlemen, if we have access to this unbelievable set of knowledge, that teachers right across this country have this knowledge, that's what you're saying? The teachers in the training, when they go to college,
must come across Skinner in child and adolescence. He's one of the key psychologists you must come across in child and adolescent psychology.
How have we fallen into this trap? Because teachers are very influential in saying to their charges, just what you have said. How have we fallen into this trap?
I think we have been a little reckless, and we have taken things for granted. Those who know, I always say, must tell those who don't know. If not, those who don't know will experiment. And so in many cases, we have not passed on, transmitted to the next generation the information that we have gathered. And we then become accidental learners, which is a very costly exercise.
I want to support that. I mean, the teachers, they are only one of the one type of variable in the whole mix. And so the environment also generally, because we're looking at this thing from a sociological perspective as well as psychological. So you might be in school and you hear that gambling is not good. And when you cross over from psychology into sociology, now you're going to your environment. This is what is pervasive. Even in a family context, you might find this is what is pervasive. And so you're still locked in that environment. And so I believe what is important here is the information and the teaching, and it must travel across groups, across cultures. And so I think what we're doing here is being a voice to help in the spreading of the information. The other thing is we don't know deep courses may have gone in terms of the teaching, but this is where a program of this nature is important. For example, if I was listening to a program like this, I would have had a pen and a paper, and I would have been making notes as a parent, because the information here to my mind is priceless. And so unless you intend to go and do the deep research, but this is already done for you. And so, and then again to the whole issue of extricating the God element from all of this, thinking that, that you can't survive. Elder Wesley talk about investment, talk about how you could put money to use and so on. And so I believe, Bishop, that families also have a key role to play in ensuring that children turned out not in a way that would be obstructive, or a way that will really cause them not to really develop and to grow.
One notion of social disintegration, it brings a heavy burden
Yep.
to families. Why don't we explain what social disintegration means so that the ordinary man? I notice the popularity of the chick board whenever you have any community gathering, and under an overmeano is called that, with the two guys and somebody shaking the cup, and you hear that, and that space at the fair or whatever you call it, the village day, that space is always well attended.
But Bishop, it has to do also. I mean, it might be well attended, but sometimes it might be a good thing to stay throughout the entire course to see how some aspects may play out. Because you ask, how do we explain social disintegration? Now, normally, what we expect from people in villages and communities is social integration, right?
Right.
So now when I'm gambling against you, I want to win your money. And you mentioned Blaise Pascal, right? The issue of probability, because he was one of the men who made the concept very popular. So on this chick board, you might got neighbors. So one neighbor winning the other neighbor money. And sometimes it could become a vexed issue. Next thing you know, fight break out because somebody losing all the time. So instead of people living together, they're depending upon each other's money to win money from another. So what you have is, instead of people coming together, it's like a fight because the issue of probability is at work. In order for Marcel to win, Winston has to lose. And if Marcel keeps winning, Winston keeps losing, or the other way around, at some point in time, somebody gets vexed. And that kind of thing. That's how we have fights, and this thing could even degenerate into killings and hospitalization and all that. So the best thing to do is to stay away from this matter.
But another aspect to that, Doc, is the fact that when you don't get it at home, you will go around the community looking for avenues where you can hurt other people by stealing what they have in order to service your appetite. To address that thing that you're dealing with. You pass by neighbor Joe and you see neighbor Joe got a bicycle under his house. And you see an opportunity to steal that bicycle and take it around the corner and sell it so you can get some money to invest in your habit. And so here again, social disintegration. The community is affected by your deviant behavior. You understand? And so every time you move through the community, people become suspicious. This boy up to no good, this girl up to no good, because they know what you're dealing with. And so they try as much as possible to secure what they have. What about in the family, accumulated debt? Because of your habit, there is accumulated debt. Unpaid bills, because daddy using the money to ride the horse instead of paying GPL and GWI.
I come back to Skinner quickly because he lists a set of things, and it affects both the individual and the community. He said gambling will lead to depression and anxiety syndrome. Gambling leads to substance use disorder. It leads to physical risk disorder. It leads to impaired decision making. And like Bishop raised just now, it deals with the sociological implications. So clearly, Skinner endorses everything that we just said. So we're not talking off our head.
Exactly, Reverend Asano. I like that. I was waiting to come in. And what I was thinking as you were talking is I like to give practical examples. I keep saying that. So all of those things that you listed, for me, it's an increased health cost. We're talking about family, and we've mentioned before who is affected, family, individuals. Now, leadership is also impacted. Leadership at local level and the national level. Why am I saying that? Depression, anxiety, mental health issues, all of those things are an increased health cost. It's finance. So normally you may get some sort of communicable disease that you have to go to the hospital. Now, that nurse or that doctor is engaged with you for a normal, quote, unquote, sickness. Now, if more persons are coming with anxiety issues, if more persons are coming with depression issues, all because of their own doing, because of something that could be avoided, substance abuse, the addiction that was mentioned earlier leads to these things because you think you can win. Seneca said, the Roman philosopher said, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. We suffer more in imagination because we think we can win, and we have this desire. Next time, it was mentioned before, right? Next time I'm going to make it big, and this leads to the loss and loss and loss, and then they come to humility and shame. And now with humility and shame, you become depressed. After depressed, you're going to head to where? Suicide. And then if suicide is not successful, there's another health implicated cost. So there's a cost attached, not just individually, but nationally. The leaders have to find resources to treat your illness that could be avoided. That's what we're sharing on this platform.
Pastor Kurt, I read this quote somewhere. I tried to get the owner, but it says, a gambler always loses. He loses money, dignity, and time. And if he wins, he weaves a spider's web around himself. As we continue to discuss the whole notion about the psychological and sociological impact, we're talking about the social disintegration and all of that. I think of what the research has proven in many instances. It speaks about the community disruption, because research has shown that issues such as changing values, we're talking about social disintegration, there's a change in values among the youth. There's a change in values, higher student dropout. All these things are happening. Increased crime and so on, and we made mention of all those things. So we really have to think about a community. We really have to be serious about what we're doing with our time, because a gambler loses time, he loses his dignity, he loses his money. Every society, every village, every community need social capital. What I mean by that, simply put, social capital is the value derived from positive connections between people. Think about that community spirit, where neighbors reach out to each other, help to build a fence, help to repair a road. Think about gambling, the effects of gambling. You're gambling with your neighbor. Reverend Hudson spoke about that earlier. You're at odds with your neighbor. It reduces the social capital that is needed for us to really develop and to really build our communities through strong relationships. So the point is, let us, with all this information that we have, it comes down to the individual. We make the right decisions. Think about the future. Think about the long-term effects. The results are there. Everything is just there to show us, but we have to make that decision. And what we're saying is, make the right decisions. Don't go in the direction of gambling because of the far-reaching effects, negative far-reaching effects it has.
We promised last week that we were going to look at the dark side of gambling. Could you imagine? The world has at its disposal research on this matter from the early 1950s. Amazing research.
And as Dr. Watson and Reverend Asana prepared to conclude this program, we charge you not just to focus on the glitz. So as I was saying early on, I was looking at that famous victory. We won by 7 runs, I think, against New Zealand in Auckland. I saw the power again of the advertisement, gambling, back and forth. Today, tonight, we hope that you will see and really understand and examine the dark side of gambling. Dr. Hudson, you can.
One should stay away from gambling because there is no real reward in gambling. It's an exercise in an adventure in romanticism. I think those were the words of Ken Dance. An exercise in romanticism. So somebody's being romantic, but obviously there is nothing to gain. And if we look at as we talk about the dark side, if we look at the effects it has on the family, on the community, and upon the individual, we will recognize that if we are going to engage in nation building practices, this is something that we would want to stay away from because it is more dangerous than helpful.
Well, God has given us the opportunity to choose. Let us choose right. The enemy has come to steal, the scripture says, to kill and to destroy. But it is God through Christ who has come to give us life and life more abundantly. Gambling is a risky business. Don't gamble your life away. Choose God, choose Christ. He will surely help you to see the way. On behalf of Bishop Messiah and all the other panelists on this program and all our friends from around the globe, we say God richly bless you and see you next time, Lord willing. Bye-bye now.
We thank you for joining us on Choices today. Remember, you can join us at First Assembly, LNP Durban Street, Workmanville, Georgetown, Guyana, for any of our special services. I'm Celestia on behalf of the set, reminding you that your whole life is the sum of your choices. God bless you.